Hey, New Life. My name is Jason. So excited to have you here for week 5 in your small groups. We're going to be in Matthew 7 this week with Dan Serdahl and Peter Blue. So excited to get to that. But before this, if you are a parent of a middle school or a high school student, I wanted to share with you an event that's coming up called Movement Conference. Super exciting event. There's going to be amazing worship, inspiring breakouts, and one of the things that we're asking and having students focus on for this event is right out of 2 Corinthians 5. We are ambassadors for Christ. And what does that mean for those students in this moment in their lives? So without any ado, we've got Dan and Pete coming up right now.
Hey, New Life. Welcome to This is Jesus. We're in week 5 together, 14 weeks. We're studying Matthew's gospel together. And today with me, by the way, my name is Dan, if you didn't know that. Today with me is...
My name's Peter.
Peter Blue, North Kitsap campus. Pete, thank you for being here as we dive into this post-snow apocalyptic season. We hope all of you made it through the snowstorm. We hope you're meeting in homes that are plowed, that it's raining, and that we're having a wonderful, normal Northwest winter.
Little inside fact that
Yes.
they wouldn't know because it's below the whole shot.
Yes.
I'm still wearing snow boots.
Whoa. One of your icebreaker questions this week is, how many of you are still wearing snow boots? Icebreaker question.
Good luck.
So let's review where we are in all of this. We're in Matthew's gospel. Matthew was an eyewitness to Jesus. Matthew was an unexpected eyewitness. He was a tax collector. A good Jewish son could not be a tax collector. We know Matthew had been shunned by his family and his culture. Along comes Jesus, reorients Matthew's life. And Matthew has certain themes that he picks up in his gospel over and over again. The kingdom of heaven is like. The kingdom of heaven is at hand. And those are the themes, the big themes, that we're all following and looking for as we read Matthew's gospel together. And today, we are in Matthew chapter 7. As we remember, we're in the middle or at the end of the Sermon on the Mount, Pete. Chapters 5, 6, and 7 are Jesus's center point message that Matthew wants to make sure we've all seen and heard together. And it's really upside down. Matthew is saying, this is what Jesus thinks a disciple, a follower of his will look like. And so we're in Matthew 7 today. And Pete, tell us a little bit about Matthew chapter 7. Where are we headed?
I think we see in the Sermon on the Mount that Jesus seems to be obsessed with a kingdom. And I think the reason why he's obsessed with that is because I think the people of that day were obsessed with the idea of this kingdom. I think they just had the wrong idea or the wrong kingdom kind of in focus. So Jesus is saying, talking continually about, we're not talking about the kingdom you're talking about. We're talking about the kingdom of heaven. And in Matthew 7, I think Jesus is trying to say, we want as many people to experience and be citizens of that kingdom. And so how do we remove a lot of the things that seem to keep people out of the kingdom, away from experiencing this beautiful citizenship, this kind of, we get to be a part of royalty. You know, we're welcomed into the kingdom.
Wow. Pete, that's really good. So in Matthew chapter 7, I hear you saying is that Jesus is giving us clues, 3 or 4 clues, as to how we as his followers can remove roadblocks.
Yeah, how do we welcome in as many people and be a part of that experience rather than keeping this kingdom isolated?
So for our friends, family, neighbors, and coworkers, what are some of the roadblocks that Jesus exposes in chapter 7?
Well, I think there's some funny imagery that Jesus uses, and one of them is basically the idea of judging one another. There's, we've all heard that phrase, well, don't judge me, Yeah. And I think Jesus is saying, well, it's a real thing. I mean, people feeling judged, and he uses this funny imagery when it comes to here's what it actually looks like when you judge somebody else with the wrong motive, not with healing in mind. It's when you come at somebody judging them with ill motive. He gives this imagery of saying it's like you're trying to take the speck out of somebody else's eye when you've got, like, it says a log or like a 2x4, a beam coming out of yours. You've got something massive stuck in your own eye. You can't even see it. You got such massive blind spots. You're not even worried about working on yourself. You're working on fixing everybody else, and everyone sees it. And it's a roadblock for sure to get into the kingdom.
It is a roadblock. Sidebar moment for the Bible nerds. Isn't it amazing how Jesus uses such memorable little snapshots? Here he's talking about a sawdust speck in your brother or sister's eye, but you've got this 2x4. This is a 2x4, by the way, coming out of your own eye. That's an amazing metaphor that we can remember as groups together. We can talk about the speck on the log, the sawdust speck, and the 2x4. And Jesus says, take care of that 2x4 in your eye first. That's upside down and unexpected. Pete, what's another roadblock?
So I think this idea, this roadblock that many of us can walk through in certain seasons that says, I don't know for sure if I believe that God is good. Is God really good? I mean, that's what we say at New Life, that our theology starts there.
Right.
That God's good.
Yes.
Yes, there's brokenness that we all have to acknowledge and see that we're broken, but we start with the fact that God is good. Many of the roadblocks, though, one of the strong roadblocks can be, I don't know if that's true. And Jesus uses this, again, imagery to say, how good are your earthly parents, your earthly fathers, that when you ask for, something to eat, you give them, a rock instead, or if you want to have a fish to be able to be nourished by, I'm going to give you a snake instead. And he uses this really odd imagery, but he's really using this extreme kind of imagery to remind us that our God in this kingdom, the central person in this kingdom, he cares so much about us. And if our earthly parents are this good to us, how much better is our Heavenly Father?
Got it. So point one, the first roadblock, had to do with judging others, that we don't do that. We have to be careful and have the humility to recognize the judgment begins with my own sin, my own falling short. The second thing is, God is actually good. When we ask for bread, God's not going to give us a stone, and if we ask for fish, God forbid, he's not going to give us a snake. What's the third point? What's the third roadblock?
The third roadblock is, are we all, as we're trying to remove these roadblocks, letting people into the kingdom, do we love like Jesus? We get to a very important part of the Sermon on the Mount where I
Yes.
think sometimes we go, oh, I didn't even know if that was actually in the Bible. I just thought that was kind of like a phrase, a saying. It's the golden rule, do to others.
Right
as
here,
you-
chapter 7. And every week, we want to give all of the groups at New Life a sidebar moment, something where you can Bible nerd out together. This week, someone in the group, maybe all of you with YouVersion on the app on your phones, we would like you to go to the message for Matthew chapter 7, have someone read aloud, or have all of the group take turns reading aloud Matthew chapter 7 from the message. You are going to be amazed, we think, by the power of hearing the voice of Jesus through Eugene Peterson's paraphrase. So that's your goal and your assignment, if you will, for this group this week, is the message, Matthew chapter 7, reading it aloud to catch the power and intensity of the words of Jesus. So Pete, I think we're ready for the question. Every week, the groups want to have a question that they can dive into together. What do we think the question should be this week?
Well, yeah, we're always continually asking ourselves at New Life, what is Jesus saying to me? What am I doing about it? So what are we going to do with this? We're talking about roadblocks. And so the question is, how do you maybe eliminate some of the roadblocks that are in your life? Maybe it's roadblocks for yourself. Maybe it's for your friends, the community, people you work with. How do we eliminate these roadblocks to welcome more citizens into this kingdom
Yeah.
that Jesus seems to be obsessed about?